Hello, this is Daniel Patrick Brennan, and this is the Wine is Food podcast. I am joined today by Guillaume Thomas from, say hello to podcast people.
Hi, podcast people.
And you are from?
Nantes, which is just down south Brittany,
Okay.
so on the west side of France.
Nantes.
Yeah, that's the one.
Nantes.
Yeah.
Pronounce that right. And you're a winemaker here in Hawke's Bay.
I am, yes.
And at Alpha Domus Winery, which is, I have to say, I was there, the day I saw you, I was with a friend, and we tasted through the wines. And that was the first time I was there since the very first week I was in Hawke's Bay. I went around and tasted some wines. And, I mean, I've had, I think, the Navigator, which is probably their second-tier Bordeaux blend.
Yes, it's right? a wine that we would make every year, Bordeaux blend-style wine.
And I always liked that wine, but I was really impressed with the wines when we went through that tasting. Again, it was probably a blur my first week in Hawke's Bay, so I didn't remember everything. There was a couple of wineries that stood out, but really was impressed with the wines. And you have what's the Bordeaux blend that's probably like $24, $26 one?
That would be the Navigator, this one.
I think we had the 08 or 09.
08 is on display at the moment.
Stunning, man. For that value, for that wine, I mean, I really enjoy finding wines like that where you almost feel like it's a secret. You're like, oh shit, man, I got like, this wine is better than plenty of $50 wines out there.
No, that's good. It's Merlot dominant, so quite easy to drink, obviously.
Yeah.
And aged in barrels will always make it quite attractive, obviously.
Basically, long story short, that was just when harvest was sort of kicking off.
Yeah, it was March. I think you came. Yeah. It was just early March, obviously.
It was right as the shit was hitting the fan. It was starting to get busy.
Starting to get all this.
We don't do as many whites at Unison, so it wasn't quite. We weren't quite as crazy over there yet. But I saw you kind of 2 jugs in your hand, and you had some beads of sweat on your forehead, and it was starting to happen.
It's always sort of the way, I guess. Whatever you do when you work in the cellar all year around, you always have stuff to do, and if you don't have anything to do, there is always some cleaning to do. So whatever it is, there is always some stuff to do. And of course, prior to vintage, there is the big cleanup because you're going to work with a raw material that is very sensitive, and you really want to give the grapes the best shot as possible. So cleaning everything really to the last details is part of the job, and that sort of means that you are really over busy right from even before the grapes come in.
And it always seems like no matter what you do ahead of it to prepare, the day that it does come, everybody's it's crazy, like And,
it depends. It depends. I know that on a few occasions you're quite right. I mean, there's always the excitement and the fact that you're going to use those those bits of equipment for the first time in a year, and they just use so much in a year, and you always cross fingers that everything is going to go right. But overall, it's really. Just the excitement that will take over, and if you don't do like a huge amount on the first day, which can happen in some wineries, that's usually a good way to get smoothly into it.
Ease into it a little bit.
Yes.
Unfortunately, probably like us, we brought in all our Merlot in one day, and it was nuts, and it was crazy. But I think there was a lot of that this year in Hawke's Bay.
Yeah, this year it really, really, really worked by peaks because the summer was so shitty and so much rain and not enough high temperature. The ripeness was definitely not here on time, so that means that you sort of have to wait for the grapes to be ripe, but in the meantime there's a lot of pressure of disease that come up, so it's a whole balance to find out and a whole compromise to get through, and obviously when things were ripe, they were all ripe together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you sort of
maybe more rains coming
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something like
No,
that.
that was a very, very challenging vintage, and we had a huge, like we probably, yeah, as you said, probably had one day to put everything together, get the press started and all that with the whites, and the week after it was like basically most of the whites that came all at once, and that's just huge amount of work and huge peak of work. And then it was this false rhythm where you were sort of waiting, you knew there was all these reds coming, but they were like not ready, and still the weather was starting to get a bit better, and no, that was good because we were able to wait, because the thesis pressure was not that bad in the end. We had done a lot of work in the vineyard, so a lot of aeration really helped the grapes to go through.
I think this year, like last year, was if you had done your work all summer and really just and well into
that was
autumn,
the key.
That was the key. And,
Yeah,
and
totally.
There'll be places that didn't do that, but I think the places like Alpha Domus and Unison and Trinity Hill and these places that really look after the vineyard.
Yes, I agree.
And have a good sort of loyal crew. And how long have you been at Alpha Domus?
About 5 years now, so it's my sixth vintage. Well, I arrived just at the end of vintage 2007, so technically it's my sixth one, but I really didn't do much at all in 2007. So yeah, I've done 5 full vintages over there. So
and what's your title there?
Titles, always some weird stuff.
Some weird stuff, yeah.
Obscure titles that mean
Man
things
of all
and
trades, yeah.
and yeah, means things and others. But basically, I'm doing the work of cellar master because I'm looking after the whole cellar.
Yeah.
I'm assisting the winemaker, but I don't know. Winemaker assistant is possibly in slightly bigger structure, because all year round I'm my own boss almost. I'm organizing my days and can do my own thing. And
yeah, sort of sensed, and that was one of the things. Like I said, I popped in that day. I sensed you were kind of running the show there, and doing your thing. You know what I mean? Or as opposed to trying to figure out or anybody else. But so who's the winemaker there?
So the head winemaker is Kate Galloway. She's
Galloway,
been
right.
she's been working at Alpha Domus for over 10 years, and she's been the head winemaker for since 2004, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, she's a very, very talented person, but these days she works part-time, so she would do a lot of the tasting and really give the rough lines where we're heading to, and she would make the decision on the blends, and during vintage she's here most of the time basically, but she would make the calls on how long you want macerate, when to press, when to do, but I'm running all the technical aspect of the winery and the day-to-day things, which is a huge amount of work in the shade behind the curtains, basically.
You seem like you were in the lab and out in the cellar. And
well, do
you have a labist? Did you have a labist? You don't have like a dedicated lab person there.
No, there's no dedicated.
So you guys do all the stuff because it's
yes.
a big enough winery where. Well, how much would you have? 1 or 2 interns? So you had.
We've got 2 people usually, plus me and Kate. Yeah. So altogether that's a team of 4. Basically, some years we had more people.
How many tons did you do this year?
Well, the tons are not going to reflect really the amount of work, because
how big is the vineyard?
Well, let's say that the vineyard is 20 hectares. There used to be another vineyard of 12 hectares.
Mm-hmm.
So 2007 was the biggest crop ever over there, and they processed 450 tons. But this year we did just under 200.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a huge amount of different products.
Yeah.
Like we've got 15 different wines on a display in the
in
the cellar door So there is a lot of work to get there, obviously.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that sometimes if you do 300 tons, it wouldn't take much more work. I mean, in Marlborough, you could do 1,000 tons and be done within 2 weeks.
Yeah,
if you do mono product, it's obviously reducing the time frame of work a lot. But here we have vintage that lasts for 3 months. So because we do from dry whites and early varieties to late harvest and noble wines, altogether it's a long harvest time.
And you enjoy that? That's been your background, and
it is great to be able to do all types of wine.
Yeah, I mean that's why I'm in Hawke's Bay.
That's the reason I came here in the first place.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's a bit long. I mean the when May hits, you really just don't want to do long hours anymore, and you know there's always a few that are coming, and it's like But I mean, that's part of the job, I guess.
So you got here in 2006.
Six the first time.
And well, let's go way back. Tell me something about Nantes.
Nantes. Nantes. Yes. So Nantes is one of the cities on the Loire Valley. It's one of the last cities before the ocean.
Which valley?
Loire Valley.
Oh, Loire. Okay.
Yeah, the Loire Valley. And there's some wine produced over there. It's a very dry white wine.
Like Chenin, right?
Chenin is a touch more in Anjou, which is a touch more inland. But in Nantes, the vineyards over there, they produce mainly a variety called Muscadet.
Yeah.
Muscadet. Yeah. And that makes a very dry white wine that obviously go quite well with seafood and shellfish. And plenty of oyster next to the ocean over there, next to Brittany. Plenty of fishermen and plenty of fish. So that's quite a appropriate product.
Wine is food, right?
So
that is the name of this podcast.
Wine is food.
Wine is food.
Yeah, so, that's always.
I didn't give you. I know this isn't a world famous podcast yet, but no, I mean that's. I think identify with European winemakers, at least because I grew up drinking those wines a little more, and I think I just tend to gravitate the palate to that style.
Yeah.
Sometimes I find it hard to pair food with some of the New World wines because they're just different and really bright and everything.
You're quite right. That's a very interesting point because coming from France, where you have all this appellation system that is quite hard to understand for foreigners and beginners in wine. Pretty much all the wines have got a good match of something, and
from the region.
And there's always a specialty. So the winemaking is very very linked to the food and gastronomy around the place regionally. And same in Italy and Spain and.
But I think what's cool and what I'm enjoying here, and maybe you are too, is that that's sort of happening now. And
absolutely,
we're like finding, what food does go well with the wine.
Yes,
Hawke's Bay, for instance,
yes.
Regionally, because it's an interesting area where there is some great seafood here, but obviously there's a lot of lamb and beef here, so that goes quite well.
And you have to take in consideration, and for me that's the main thing in New Zealand. That's it's a very pro-agricultural country, and therefore there's a huge influence of other types of food, like Asian.
Yeah,
is very big in this country.
Yeah, who would have
Indian
thought
and things like this.
German and some of the French, the Viognier and the Gewürztraminer, and even down the Sauvignon Blanc and some of even the Chardonnays, and we just had some sort of Asian food Monday night with about 4 different bottles of Gewürztraminer, and who would have thought German wine and Asian food?
Yeah, sure. That you're completely right.
Sort of what's happening here,
and that's the whole point of it, is that it never ends. The trials of matching food and wine never ends. And that's one of the things I love, because it's so open and there's nothing wrong in trying new things.
No.
Sometimes it will not work, but sometimes it's extremely incredible what much you can get. I did an experiment a few years back, and it was a very silly experiment, but it's tasting wine in a black glass, so you can't see the color of the wine, and just determining if it's red or white. It can seem silly.
Yeah, no, but it's tough.
But it's tough.
And a lot of people screw it up.
Yes, and I mean, even when you have like at the time, I think I had already 5 years in the wine industry experience, and yes, some of the fresh fruity reds that have got a tendency to carry some nice acidity compared to some heavier style whites with blends of different varieties, and would have been aged in barrels. Like, whoop, you wouldn't really put your hand to cut. It's like it can be very tricky. So
big Bordeaux with a nice white fish or something. You're like, oh, sorry, I screwed that up.
But I'm very keen on doing that. Trying to drink. I mean, not every time, because there's still.
No, but it's
few
neat
things
to say. Like I only. In the last few years, I really thought about, well, you were here for the big Thanksgiving meal that I did here. And it wasn't until, I think we used to drink a lot more red wine. I mean, some white was always around, but we were reds. It wasn't until, I'd say, the last 4 or 5 years that you really just sort of switched to rosé with I think it's quite good with turkey. And, Unison does a nice rosé, so I had some access to that. But I think that's now that's sort of shifted, but it was all about, well, let's try this out, because turkey can be pretty heavy and for a white meat. There's dark meat in there too. So
it's just a sweetness sometimes of the food that you have to cut with some nice fresh acidic wine. And that can be in a light red, that can be in a rosé, that can be in a bigger white wine. And I mean, when I say bigger white wine, it's slightly bigger structured white wine, but that would still retain a sort of freshness. So experiments are great, and there's nothing wrong in trying. And if it doesn't work, well, you just drink the wine and you open another bottle.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said when you tried that experiment, you had 6 years or 5 years before that. So when did you, and this has been, I said this to Hayden, the last guy I interviewed, this has been what I've found has been the trend, at least in the start of this little podcast that I'm doing, is kind of asking people, what got them into wine, what started, and I think, certainly talking to some of the old world people, they would think, oh, he must have grown up on a vineyard and he must have done that. I actually know nothing about your background, but how did you get in? Where did you start?
Quite interestingly, it was not my first call. I actually was quite brilliant at school, quite academic.
You were quite brilliant?
Quite brilliant at school. I mean, I was always top of the class and things like this. But as many young lads, I blew it all off. And I went to do music, which was extremely interesting. I loved it. So I just basically quit all studies and all form of school, because I was finding it very boring in a way. There was no link with reality. It was very, very theoretical.
This is something else that I found very interesting, and I found out Thanksgiving night, which I didn't know. First, we had a conversation, probably before harvest, how much you knew more about Pink Floyd than anybody that I've ever spoken to. And I find that's pretty awesome when you say, oh, here's somebody who grew up speaking another language, and I mean, I know some guys growing up. I definitely like Pink Floyd and all that, but I knew some guys who I thought knew some stuff about them. But man, you were going, oh, this album, this guy was here and he left then, and this is what was going. And I was like, okay, this is cool.
You're talking about my favorite band, so I guess if you have sort of passion for a band, you sort
of hit on those random little.
And that's great. I mean, but Pink Floyd, of course, is a monument of music, and they have brought up so many classical throughout their lives.
But then the other thing I found out is that do you sing in a choir in Napier? Or
yes,
used to?
Yes,
you do.
Yes. Well, this year it's a bit tricky actually, but
I heard your voice Well, let's just say you were out singing in the vineyard after Thanksgiving
Yeah.
meal, and I thought, what is that? Sounds nice. It's okay, all right. Well, you and Pierre were out singing but your voice is really strong.
Yeah. No. I do have a inheritance from my dad. I guess that had a strong voice, and my grandmother was singing in choirs and all that. So I guess I got those genes.
Yeah.
I really love singing, and so yeah, I was very interested in music. Did a lot of different styles.
What stuff do you sing in the Napier choir? Like
Oh, in the Napier Civic Choir, it's very classical pieces,
Mm-hmm.
and that's great. I mean, there's like 80 chorists, so it really sounds great.
What's the name of the group or the choir?
Oh, it is Napier Civic Choir.
Napier Civic Choir.
So yeah, we perform concert at the cathedral. But for me, it's a bit hard because the first one is always during vintage, and this year vintage was a bit longer than expected, so therefore
they were missing your big bellow then,
Oh yeah, but there's enough people there, and that's I don't think I can attend to it this year. There's a bit too many things happening.
Well, you
in
just
my
had
life.
you're expecting? Is that
Yeah, my wife is pregnant, so that's puts a bit of a.
That's a bit, that's a big responsibility.
And
adds
it's
some things to it.
it's a lot of things to prepare and all that. So no, I am singing, and so yeah, that's the way I started my basically adult life, singing in bands and different styles of music.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, well, after a while, I sort of realized that. Despite my passion for it, it would be very tough to make a living out of it, and yet coming back from my youth, where everything seems to be nice and shiny, I realized that there was a lot of individualism in the business of music. Like people would put a nice face when talking to each other and sort of faking to be in the same boat, but as soon as people were going away, it was all knives in the back and all that, so stabbing in the back, and it's I've been very disillusioned, and the sort of feasibility and financial side of the music was a bit of a worrying point. So I tried to think about. I definitely had some academic skills, and I thought,
I think we could talk for a long time. That's what I don't know if I did that for 6 years in my 20s. I was working in the music industry. With a particularly one band, and it was like that. It was really tough, and it's a dirty business.
It's very nice and shining when you talk to people, and everybody is smiling, but it's just a shark's world. It's just terrible, and everybody will try to get the gig and to push the others away, and I was very, very disillusioned about the whole thing.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Yes,
and nowadays, the one people ask me, well, what's the difference? Because there are definitely some parallels between the two, the music business and the wine business.
I do find that
I think
too.
There's an artistic thing to it. There's sort of, at least with good wine, there's that, sort of intangible, thing that you can't quite put your finger on with making it, and who makes why you like one bottle of wine and you don't like it. It's a matter of taste.
Yes, absolutely.
And music is the same way. It's how can I tell you if you like a song or not? You just say, I like that song. I like pop music, or I like Pink Floyd, or I like, everybody has an opinion, and the same goes for, I like this bottle of wine, or I like, Monkey
Unfortunately,
Bay, Sauvignon Blanc or something.
What I would say is that same parallel for music. The negative point about all that is that some bad wines can be very well marketed, and they will be very successful because a lot of people don't know enough, which is a bit crude and silly to say, because it's not about knowing, it's about enjoying. But you can sort of, as a winemaker, you know that some of the wines are not that great, but because they are part of a big company and they are so well marketed, they are sold everywhere, and that's making like sort of very successful things. And same thing with music. It's not always the best stuff that is the most popular, because it's all about marketing, and especially in society nowadays.
But it's kind of cool though, even as I'm sure you are a fan of music and a fan of wine. It's like, just like I was talking about earlier, when I find that $25 bottle of Navigator, it's like finding that indie band that nobody's like heard of or something, and you're like, yeah, this is mine, this is my my new thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I haven't done that for quite a while, and I should try to.
Oh, I got some tunes for you. Don't worry, and I'll find some wine for you.
Yeah, no. I'm drinking a few stuff, but there hasn't been enough of this wow factor lately, and I tend to. Sometimes, you just go through phases where you're just happy with what you have, and you're not in the research of new things, which is not a bad thing, obviously. But it's always good to sort of be surprised. Yeah.
Sorry, so we got to get back to France.
Sure,
so you're in France.
So so after these 3 years of music experience, basically, I decided to go back to school. But I didn't quite know what to do, obviously. But at this stage, I was my family doesn't come at all from wine background. But one of my best mates, who happens to be my parents' neighbor, so who was my neighbor when I was growing up, he was in his father had a vineyard and was making wine, and so he was going to take over the business. So sort of discovered wine, and with him from quite an early age. I could say.
Always good.
Yeah. So good memories there, obviously. And we were a group of friends, and very, very keen on gastronomy too. So it sort of all came in this late teens, early 20s, where.
So how old were you when you were doing music then? You were in.
It was really my late teens. I was doing music. And it's the same sort of time where I sort of discovered wine and the pleasures of matching food and wine, and really got into gastronomy, cooking our own stuff every now and again on a Saturday night. Put a big note on the table and go and buy some stuff, cook our own stuff, buy the good bottle.
What you mean.
So it was so cool, and I really loved it. And on top of that, wine and viticulture, there's all aspects that I really like. It's like a link with nature, but it's also linked with technology, and that's an ongoing world, and that's linked with travels and with culture and with history and with quite a lot of things, and you can invent your own story. That you don't need to belong to some sort of sect to actually enjoy it, and I really like that. So thanks to this friend of mine, obviously, who introduced me to the wine industry, and so I studied in Bordeaux then from 2000 to 2002. Studied enology and viticulture, and then had a few experiences.
How big is that school? Was it University of Bordeaux or?
It's not the university on this side. It's the School of Medoc, so the left side of Bordeaux, of the river.
Is that the Merlot side?
No, it's more the Cabernet side.
Cabernet. Merlot.
Merlot is more Saint-Emilion. So
the Medoc.
Yeah, Medoc. So, but that was
that's right. That's
good experiences, and met a lot of people that still friend with. Pierre is one of these. We studied together.
Oh, okay.
We studied together. Sorry,
talking
about a friend. He's
probably
of
the
ours.
next
next online
French,
for
the next Frenchman at least. I'm gonna try to speak to him when I ask him Friday night if we can chat, because I think it's really cool that there is this little, I don't want to say a swell, but there's definitely a little bit of a movement of some Europeans and some. There's a few Americans, but there's definitely a little more of an international movement coming into Hawke's Bay who want to stay here.
Yes. Well, it's a very attractive region. Obviously, there's a microclimate here, and
But I mean, I talked to some
wine
interns and
soils
stuff that come through, and they're like, "Oh, it's gonna." I'm like, it's not. It's definitely not for everybody. I've definitely some people, but as far as winemaking and the life and the, the culture and what you can be to help develop it, I think is a great region.
Yeah, I like it too. I grew up in the countryside. I mean, I was like 20 minutes from Nantes, which is a 400 or 500,000 town. But I was in the countryside, so I've always been sort of used to this more relaxed
I like
side of thing, and that suits me, my likings, my life, and what I want to do. So yeah, and there's this potential in this region that is huge and unbelievable. But there's different ways, and it's always very hard to market yourself, obviously, in this competitive world nowadays.
Yeah.
But there's ways to find some little markets here or there, and to just make a quiet living. It's not always about getting super rich and all that. It's just trying to make
about making a life and not a living.
having a good time on our time on this planet, basically.
Absolutely.
And if it comes through that, well, good, and that's what I want to do.
So after you finished that in Bordeaux,
I worked for a year in the Loire Valley for a big company, which was kind of interesting experience, but not at all what I wanted to do. So I've never really worked after that for big companies, because that's a very industrial way of making wine, and that's not a lot of interest, and you really lose the link with nature.
Yeah.
And then I started traveling, so went in Australia first, in Margaret River. Worked for a little winery called Eagle Vale over there. That was lovely.
Eagle Vale? Eagle Vale.
Yeah, Eagle Vale.
Okay.
Very, very interesting.
What kind of wine did they make?
Oh, a whole range, from Sauvignon Blanc, Semillon blend to Chardonnay.
A little cooler there then.
Shiraz and Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah.
Pretty much sort of same type of climate as you would find in the Hawke's Bay.
Okay.
Pretty similar, except that longer and drier summers. So
it is Australia after all.
Yeah, but that's sort of a corner where it still gets wet in winter, and you have a little bit more of an influence of vintages, because in lots of other regions you don't have vintages. No, it's like the same product every year.
Yeah. It's just dry and hot.
No, but that was extremely interesting, and first experience abroad in an English-spoken country. So after that experience, I went back to study marketing of wine in the south of France, in Montpellier, because it was sort of, when you have an idea of how production works, it's all great, but you generally don't have a clue how to sell the stuff. So I just studied that in order to know what was the whole big unknown around that. That's not my main
that was
passion.
Like a year?
Yeah, 1 year. Yeah. So it's not my main passion, marketing and selling wine. But it's definitely part of the thing, and if you're talking about your own wines and your own product, it's far easier to sell than.
It's amazing to me that, and I think it's changing, certainly with younger winemakers that are understanding it a little more now. That, there's guys who come up and they start out as a cellar hand or intern, and then they become a cellar foreman, and then they become an assistant winemaker, and then all of a sudden they become a winemaker, and you're supposed to know accounting, marketing, business strategy, all this stuff, and particularly marketing. You're the sort of face of the brand.
Absolutely,
and you have to have a good handle where you want to take things, where you want to go, and I don't have a marketing degree or anything like that, but I've always had it in mind. It's like, who cares about your product?
And
you know what I mean?
It is extremely interesting to actually study these things, because you realize that if you want to do some exporting, for example, exporting wine, you can't just decide one day getting up and thinking that you're going to export your wine. It's extremely expensive. It's a big investment, and the returns are not always there because it's a very competitive world we live in. So yeah, that's.
You hear that, guys? So decibelwines.com. Please help. That's part of the reason why we do the podcast. You have to get creative with marketing and do things like podcasts and get people interested in it. But no, totally. I mean, that's why I do stuff like this. Is not, and I just really enjoy talking to different people and finding different stories. But I mean, shit, I know you gotta get out there and talk about it. And,
yes.
And there's some people that I've talked to winemakers just say, I just don't want to do it. I don't like it. And I think that's a better approach than saying, I'm going to try it, but I don't like it. It's like, well, if you don't like it, then just do something, have a role in your company that you don't do that.
Yes.
I think it's going to be tough though in this day and age where you sort of have to be multitasker. There's no more anymore that this person is just an enologist. And
no, absolutely not. No, especially in the wine industry, it's amazingly complex and full of different fields that you need to be good at on all things. So it's.
But that's what I like about it too.
Yeah, it is, but it can be daunting sometimes, and that just means that you need to know where you're heading towards when you make the choice of doing it, because it's not a relaxing activity and there's no real rests.
If you're not making wine, you're out selling it. And,
yes, exactly.
So where. After you did that year back in south of France?
Yeah, so just by the way, that was on this year that I did the tasting in the black glasses.
Oh, okay.
So that was 5 years basically from when I started. It was back in 2005, this. So from then I went to the US in California and did a vintage over there in the Nantes Valley, which is just in between Napa and Sonoma Valley.
What?
The Nantes Valley.
The Nantes Valley?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's a very, very tiny.
I mean, I just did harvest in Napa, and I don't even know.
4 wineries and like a top winery. It was called Peter Michael Winery, and those guys talking about marketing. It was just amazing. They had like 13,000 customers on their main list, and they were selling all direct, and they had 7,000 customers on the waiting list, and it's just like, wow. You must be kidding. So amazingly successful in terms of marketing, and I mean the price point of the wine. The wine was selling from $70 to $200 US a bottle. So that's very awesome. Very high quality. High marketed wine.
It's really it's pretty awesome.
But very interesting to do an experience over there. And loved traveling. That's the great thing too about winemaking, is that when you do the traveling around the place, you get to discover some places, and you work in the place, so you sort of know the people how they're going to and you talk a lot, and so you always go to see awesome stuff. So really loved my trip over there. The people I was staying with was quite funny. They wanted to kidnap me. They didn't want me to leave. so I finally left, and we stayed in contact since then. So I still email them on a regular basis, call them my auntie and uncle from the US.
Maybe I'm going in a month or so. I'll have to check them out when I'm there.
Yeah.
Put me in touch so I can get like a private tasting
from Santa Rosa. But there were people that didn't have anything to deal with the wine industry, but I was just renting a room.
They were the people at the house, not at the winery.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But still, it was just a good experience altogether, and the guy was making his own wine and all that. But anyway. And after that, it was here, 2006, New Zealand. So I worked a vintage at Hatton Estate, which was on the Gimlet Gravel, so right in the middle of the
I know about
vineyard, and really great stuff. I love the place. I was extremely keen on the boss over there,
Yeah.
Michael Damon King.
A lot of people say good things about
Very,
him.
very,
Yeah.
very
I
nice
spoke
guy.
to him on the phone one time. I ordered some wine from him. He was a really cool guy.
Yeah, extremely, extremely cool guy, and that's one of the things that really made me want to that made me have a better look at this country, because it was like the guy is like the boss. He's got quite a few bit of dollars on his bank account. He's coming from a background of being a golden boy back in the banks in London, Singapore, and all that. And I mean, he could be very snob about it all, but he's actually put himself down to earth and talk to you as if you were his best friend, and you have a beer after work in the pub, and that's all good, and that was great. I mean, I really enjoyed that, and I mean, later on, after my experience over there, we sort of became friends and had dinners together, and that was great. I mean, that's sort of the kind of people that you
There's a lot,
make something special about the place too. It's like it's rare to see a place where you mix so much everybody and nobody cares here.
Yeah. I think it's again getting back to that sort of a little bit of a movement of some people who are figuring out what Hawke's Bay has to offer, and sort of trying to establish roots here, and that's what I'm trying to do, and I think sounds like you are, and you're starting a family here now, and it's all go. And then you went to Alpha Domus.
Well, just for the story, I was renting a room in a house back in 2006, and I pretty much fell in love with the owner of the house.
Okay.
And so we got together, and she came to France when I went back to France, and I came back afterwards. So back in 2007 here.
And she's Kiwi?
She's a Kiwi, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was
that makes things easier.
Yes, it does. So yeah, but back in 2007 and starting after we were sure that there was something serious about us too. So I did a vintage in between in France. So yeah, sometimes you do 2 or 3 vintages in a year. And I think 2006 or 7. I can't remember. 2006, I think it was 3 vintages. I also had a loop in Hungary to see how they were
another Eastern
making,
European. I just spoke to
making Tokai, the sweet wine.
I spoke to a Romanian winemaker.
Yeah.
5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, towards the end of harvest, and Hayden, who is the winemaker over at William Murdoch, which is an organic vineyard on the Gill Gravels. He did one in Bulgaria.
Yeah.
And I have had some Hungarian wines, though. Some nice wines.
The Tokai wine, I don't know if you've heard about that, but that's the sweet wines. Very, very exceptional wines, really.
Yeah.
And really worth trying. So I just wanted to know how they were making and making those
so how
wines.
were you able to squeeze that in? Is that an earlier harvest? Or?
No, it's very late harvest
Very
because it's
late,
sweet
okay.
wines. So what I did is that I did a vintage in New Zealand, then went back to France, did a vintage in the Muscadet in my own region with my friend. But vintage just lasts for a month basically, and it's quite early. And then I drove to Hungary to do a vintage over there.
And now that's all sort of EU now, so it's pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, Europe's always been fairly easy to travel around.
Yes,
but
I drove from my place to over there without stopping at a single boundary. So
it's great.
So yeah, it is a very, very nice way to do travel. But there's also some financial problems that appear sometimes.
We don't have to get into all that right now, but
no. But I went back 2007 and I did the vintage at Church Road. This vintage.
They're making some great wines right now.
They really do make some great wines, but just slightly oversized to my liking.
Yeah, well, they're owned by a big company, and
absolutely, but they make brilliant wines and lots of different batches and all that. But the problem is that when you work as an intern over there, because it's 3 shifts, if you start to follow a tank or you can come back the next day and it's gone, and you don't know where it's gone. And it's been pretty interesting because the winemakers, the head winemakers, take all the decisions, and they don't always tell you about things. So yeah, that was a bit the downturn. It's like very hard to follow something. So when you have a product that you're really keen on, it's about impossible.
It makes it tough to learn too.
Yeah, it's like, well, okay. Now I was interested because they had done that, and there was this aspect of the one that I really liked, and now they've blended it with something else, so I don't even know what the effect of that is medium term. So it was a bit frustrating for that, and a bit too big for my liking, because for this reason, very hard to follow up products. But then I tried some of the wines we had made this vintage, and there was some good stuff, and they come up with some really good stuff.
Some of the smaller, the Couve series and
definitely.
Well, they're just their reserve, I think, is really nice.
The reserve,
and that would be stuff. There is some. They're owned by one of the big brands, so there's some big winemaking there.
Yeah.
And then you ended up at Alpha Domus, yeah?
Yes. So well, the story is that David was the winemaker at Hatton Estate, and his partner Kate is the winemaker.
Okay, I didn't realize that they were
Alpha Domus. So yeah, that was the link after Vintage 2007. That was very big for Alpha Domus. The interns were going back home, and there was still a lot of work to do. Basically,
sure.
A lot of pressing going on, and all the last pressing of Cabernet. Some of the stuff still fermenting. So Kate was looking after somebody, and I was just finishing my work at Church Road, so that sort of fell nicely to me.
Good,
because I could, I could follow up. However, I had to go back in France. Well, I had sort of a ticket and visa stuff and all that. So
I know.
So I left for for a few months, but I came back by the end of the year and pretty much stayed since then over there.
And now you get to see the season from beginning to end, and
it's interesting too, because learning curve is great and traveling is great, all that, but it's very exhausting to just do 2 vintages a year and not to have a point where you can rest and call home. I mean, it's great. I really loved it, but
no, there is a point where I'm hoping to get to that point still myself.
Yes.
I hope next year is more like that, and I really do want to stay for the full year. But you're right, it's tricky.
It's great also to actually to actually follow the life of the wine throughout the year, because even if there's far less happening, like the big times of the wine is the vintage, obviously, from harvesting to having the wine in barrel or tank, and then it's towards bottling when you have the fining and filtration. But in the meantime, there's always a whole lot of little things that nobody sees, and that's what I'm doing all year round, basically. And this requires a lot of attention, because you deal with a lot of barrels, a lot of different batches, a lot of tanks, and you can't really let go. So that's where you have to be organized, in order to look after every wine. And make sure you don't fuck up.
Well, cool. I don't, for you guys out there who are listening, Alpha Domus has the airplane on the label, and we're actually around the corner from that right now is where I live and where we're recording this in the Wine is Food Decibel Wine studio here. But we're out in the middle of Vineyard and Bridge Pa, and I just heard a plane fly over and made me think of that. And so we hope, people out there listening will get to Hawke's Bay and taste these wines and come check out.
The wines are pretty well marketed worldwide. Anyway.
Yeah, I think you'll be able to find them in a lot of markets. Is there any in the U.S.?
There used to be.
I know there's some UK, right, and Australia.
We still are working with a few things, but it's different states have different laws. So we export just in a few states. I think
that's cool. So you might be able to find it out there, but I think more importantly is to get some people to Hawke's Bay and come around and taste these wines and come to the beach and So I think by the time, and I just looked at it, we've done almost 50 minutes, which is pretty serious. So I'm definitely, a lot of times after I interview somebody, I'll come back, a week later and follow up with a few things. And I think, but we're a pretty good time right now. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that I think by the time this interview gets posted, the decibelwines.com website will have like a little more feature on the podcast and links to everything. And I will have some information about Loire Valley, about maybe the region of France you're from.
Yep.
If you have any questions, as always, you can email wineisfood@gmail.com. If you want to ask Guillaume and anything about Alpha Domus, anything about Hawke's Bay as usual. But as we were saying earlier, the marketing is an important part. So, there's definitely some Decibel wines now available in the U.S. The new batch of 2010 Malbecs, very exciting.
Good stuff. The Malbec is good.
Thank you
Malbec
very
is
much.
good.
Yeah.
It goes well with turkey.
Yeah, that's right. So I just want to thank you for doing this. And what I hope is that I speak to you again, down the road, and we
Sure.
see where we're at. We sort of covered. I think the cool part about doing this is, now it's logged. Now it's official. We have this. People can go say, hey, what's that guy about? And they go read their story. If we go back and talk, maybe we could talk, simply about, I don't know, French wine or something else.
Yeah.
We could speak
no,
again.
My pleasure.
But they can go back and learn a little bit about you, because now we know all about you now.
And I bring the beer next time.
Yeah, maybe you could sing something for us next time or something too, or now if you want,
Maybe not now.
Maybe not now.
I'm a bit of a cold. So.
Oh, okay, well, next time we'll have something prepared, official though. I don't know if my little studio microphones, these little things can handle it, but we'll get there. And thanks a lot, guys, for listening. And thank you. We have a little bit of beer left here. We have a cold beer after a long day. And I say cheers, but you say...
Santé.